Let's consider what controls how big the interception loss is in any particular storm event. And by how big it is, we're going to talk about the relative amount of water that is intercepted compared to the amount that would end up hitting the ground surface. And I'm going to use these up arrows to denote a positive correlation and down arrows to denote a negative correlation. So let's first consider the size of a storm. And the bigger the storm is, the smaller the relative amount of interception. And that's because in a 100 millimeter storm, a significant fraction of that's going to end up hitting the ground, whereas in a 10 millimeter storm, a lot of that might end up just getting caught in the tree canopy, and you'll have minimal canopy drip or stem flow or through fall. If we were to consider the plant community, coniferous plant communities, evergreen trees mainly, tend to be associated with relatively high amounts of interception compared to, for example, a grassland community where there's much smaller relative leaf area and tend to be associated with relatively small amounts of interception losses. And in general, this could be described as leaf density. So the greater the leaf density, the greater the interception loss. One other thing to consider is the amount of energy available to evaporate. So how warm is it, for example, when it's raining? And if there's more energy available to evaporate, then we will tend to have greater interception losses. Let's consider making a plot. And the axes of this plot are going to be gross precipitation and net precip. So remember, gross is the total that falls from the sky. Net is the amount that actually ends up hitting the ground. And if there were no interception at all, we should see things falling on this one-to-one reference line. But because of interception, we would anticipate that there's going to be more gross precipitation than net precipitation because some of it's not going to end up hitting the ground. So let's think about what happens when it first starts raining here. We'll consider this period A. It's raining and we're falling well below this one-to-one line. So during this time period A, we have high initial losses due to interception. And specifically due to the canopy wetting up and storing water, due to canopy wet up and storage. But some rain still can drip through the leaves or fall through the leaves without hitting them. So the slope is not actually zero. It's slightly greater than zero. Once it's been raining for a little while and the canopy is wet, more rain on a particular leaf is just going to cause some other rain to fall off. And so we end up seeing a slightly greater slope here. It starts to go up, but note that this slope is still a little bit shallower than the one-to-one line. So we'll call this period B. And during B, this is after canopy wet up. The stem flow and drips off leaves are steady. But net precip is still less than gross precip. So these slopes are still not the same, and that's because even in the storm, there's still evaporation. So some water is still slightly evaporating, and so you're not going to get all of the rain that falls from the sky to end up hitting the ground as net precipitation.